Chris, I think we all got a reminder yesterday how brutal your game is. How do you digest what's happened to your brother?
Oh, well, not to talk about it publicly, especially. No, there's no especially. I just don't talk about these things publicly.
Fair enough.
How did you, I guess, on that...
It's going to be a hard question, isn't
it? Yeah, it is. I'm just trying to work out how to frame it.
It's impossible.
Move on to other things.
Yeah.
When you got someone like James Hurd, throw in there, like he's been out of the game for 10 years, how hard would it be for someone like that, or anyone for that matter, walking into a coach's box and picking up the reins as a senior coach of an AFL club, do you think?
Well, I think it'd be a question for that person and that prospective club to answer. I couldn't do it.
Have you spoken to Brad at all?
Have one more go and then we'll move on.
I've had mine too, Craig,
Okay.
so
No,
yeah,
no.
I don't think
Appreciate it.
Chris, has it opened the door for one of your very capable lieutenants to potentially find an AFL job down the track?
I mean, there needs to be a vacancy for those guys to get an opportunity, but it's been really clarifying for me over the last couple of years on a personal level. I hesitate to even talk about this because this is sort of borderline personal stuff, but part of the reason that I was attracted to working with Nathan Buckley, besides the obvious, and there are lots of obvious reasons why that would be a positive, was that with Stephen King, we didn't go into that relationship thinking that it was going to be a 2-year thing, but it was just an outstanding success for our footy club. It was great for me personally, and hopefully it was good for him as well. And so when we reflected on that, so the possibility that we might have coaches on very, very short-term stints with our club didn't seem to be the negative that you might have thought about it being in previous years or previous eras, probably. And I think like Bucks in particular, has he's just got a love for the game and a real, desire to contribute to, and that's one of the things I've admired about him. It's like, yes, the normal coaching stuff and the assistant role has been outstanding, but just the desire to have an impact on young people's lives, and obviously he stayed really close to the game as well, and has been more than willing a number of times to sort of. I hesitate to call it an apprenticeship because that would be condescending, because we're a lot more collegiate than that in the way we approach our coaching team, and he obviously walked in and took a very senior role right from the start. And James Kelly and James Rowley, they're really only our other two senior assistant coaches. I mean, I put Nigel Lappin in that category, but he works more with our development and our VFL team. So like, my commentary put more broadly on it would be, I would assume that the Tasmanian job is a little bit more of a development type sort of role in the early stages, and we have a number of guys that are just perfectly credentialed for that. And then the other jobs, are very different with their own sort of unique set of challenges. It's not for me to work out whether our guys are sort of prepared for those things or not. Maybe no one is. I think it's a bit like young prospective families talking about, are we ready to have kids? It's kind of like, well, we'll never be completely ready, but we've got to do it at some stage. That's probably a neat analogy with coaching. But I think our guys, and I don't even like talking them up too much, because one, I think everyone feels like they've got no choice but to talk them up, so you take it with a grain of salt. I tend to anyway. But also, I actually don't have any intention of talking them up to the point that we lose them. But having said that, their personal aspirations in this case, and there's very few cases in footy where I think this applies, but their personal aspirations do trump their position within our club at the moment. And I sort of refer back to Stephen King as well. I just really admire the way he's gone about it, and hopefully we had some part in making that a little bit easier for him.
Have you got your head around, Chris, that these processes will start and your boys might be earmarked to go through them, the disruption and them balancing that? Does that need to be on your mind?
Yeah, I think it's okay to say that we would need to be aware of it, but it's I can't see, even from previous experience, it's unlikely that we're going to have a problem with it. And I think I've heard different points of view on that one. I can't remember exactly sort of who sits in which camp, but I think we're capable. I'm sort of looking at Andrew Mackey a little bit because he plays a sort of big role in this, but we'd like to think that our guys could walk and chew gum at the same time. And I think the other part is, I can't think of an example where a club looking for a coach has been disrespectful of us in their process. It's on the contrary, I think they've been sort of really communicative and responsible in the way they've sort of dealt with our people.
Does the club take us a bit of almost have a sense of pride that guys like James Rowley, James Kelly, and Nathan Buckley are all being regarded as potential coaches in waiting?
I suppose so. I try not to think about it that way. I tend to think that the work speaks for itself, and it's we're not. I don't think any of our guys or our club are trying to do things to curry favour with the wider public and have them say nice things about us. Our position is, if we do a good job, then things will look after themselves.
You mentioned some of the Bucks' great qualities. I know you said you didn't want to talk them up too much, but what really does stand out about James Rowley and James Kelly as coaches?
If you don't mind, I'm going to sort of stick to my intention of not talking about it too much at this early stage. I think there will come a time. Look. I hope it doesn't hurt them by not talking about it, but I genuinely don't think it helps talking about it publicly. I think the stuff that will count is that when inevitably people from outside our club ask about those guys, we'll be very expansive and very honest. But I think I've spoken about James Kelly before, so just really briefly on James Rowley. I really admire the guys that have worked on their craft for a long time. And COVID was a brutal experience. We're still suffering from COVID, to be honest. And we ended up losing him for a period of time that was difficult for everyone. Obviously, most seriously for him and for his family. But the silver linings in life sometimes. He went to Adelaide, saw a different environment, learnt a lot from them in a sort of rebuilding phase, and came back to our club, in my opinion, a better coach. Which again keeps our feet on the ground. So, as referenced the previous question, we would like to think we do a good job, but not for a second do we think that we're sure we do things better than other clubs. In fact, we're positive that other clubs do some things better than we do. And James was kind of a case in point. He came back a rounded coach, so he's done he was at Geelong when I arrived. I can't remember exactly how long before that. Played a long time at Geelong, but let's call it, And again, sometimes I think the lack of respect for coaching, if I can get on my high horse a little bit. You have a guy who has to do a 16 to 17 year apprenticeship to be considered for a senior job. There aren't many walks of life, or there aren't many professions where that's a requirement, where that's table stakes to get a seat at the table. And he's done the hard work and he's bloody good at what he does. So stay at the Cats rails is what I'm saying. Sorry.
Carlton on Friday been a bit of a bogey side the last couple of years, and new coach Josh Fraser's been doing some good things with the Blues. What have you made of them in the last 2 weeks, and I guess how they've shifted in their style?
My takeaway would be that the things that they're doing really well are the things that they've been trying to prioritise for a long time. I'm not sure that there's a huge shift in that respect. So not telling anyone anything they can't work out really quickly by watching them for a quarter or two. But they have elite players in the middle of the ground, and their contest has always been a strength. And even if you look over the course of the season, they've been in front in a lot of the games that they've played. Like their percentage of time in front is actually quite high. It doesn't reflect their ladder position. So there's a lot of things that were going right anyway. They just had some periods in games where a lot went wrong at the same time. But again, that's sort of more their challenge than ours, where it's not difficult to pinpoint their strengths. I think it is a modern competition a bit. Like I've said a few times, it's a bad time to be rebuilding because you can improve year on year and just not move up the ladder. It's just the fact that the competition is getting so much better, and you've got teams that have been doing it for a long time. But they have accrued some talent, not only at the top end. It was pretty recent, wasn't it, that Patrick Critz polled 45 votes in a Brownlow. That at least sort of suggests that they've got some elite level talent there. Sam Walsh is a star. Jagger Smith is a young star. Chera was a really early draft pick, high talent. Like it's not difficult. Put it this way, like internally we're not sitting there sort of thinking, oh, all we have to do is roll out our game and we'll be okay. But again, I'm not sure that the 2 wins are that different to some of the patches they had in games early in the year.
Tanner will play, Chris?
Yeah, Tanner will play. So it was, again, I find myself saying this a lot, that it was a management call that's kind of bordered on the overprotective. But, in a way, especially when you win the game, you sort of think, well, all's well that ends well. But again, we will and we have faced situations where we look back and say maybe that was a bit cautious and it cost us in some respects. But don't think we're in that position yet with Tanner. We've got 4 games before the bye, so it'd be nice to get him back in. I suspect he won't have to miss too much from here on in.
Some players who put up some good numbers in the VFL that no doubt come into calculations. I know you speak weekly about it's a good problem to have, but is it horses for courses again this week?
Yeah, it is. It is. I hesitate to say that we've got some guys that really can't be doing much more. We always want them sort of pushing for a little bit more, but they are playing their part. And I'll just reiterate that the way we think about the season and the relentless nature of it is that we're trying to build as big a squad as possible of sort of viable AFL players, and we think that we have a very big group of that like that at the moment. And some of the performances, young and old, have been outstanding. So they're playing their part. It makes it makes our decision making a little more challenged, but we just keep reverting back to let's think long term. But again, I hesitate to say it because it's easier for us. It's bloody hard on them. When you're doing everything you can, you're still not getting your opportunity. That can be frustrating.
Does management come into your thinking this week with some of your senior players?
Oh, well, it does every week. It doesn't make it any different. It's just the only differences are the reasons why. But yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult to see sort of wholesale changes to our team this week.
It was reported that Tyson Stengel was back at the club on Monday. I mean, how pleasing is that for you and the group?
I don't comment on unsubstantiated reports, but more broadly, my position hasn't changed. I'm really optimistic that we can really help Tyson and he can really help us. I'm not comfortable with like the way that whole kind of idea works, but I'm trying to be as vague as possible because there's not much I can say. But yeah, my optimism hasn't waned around Tyson.
Can you just clarify that? So has he returned to the club or?
Well, it was an unsubstantiated rumour, I think, so I don't like confirming or denying them.
So happy for the speculation?
Yeah, but that's the position you guys take. I like your tactic. It's a good one. Like you're just here to clear it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And hopefully you can.
But I'm not. Well, what do you want to say? What's that club position?
He's on an individualised program, and that'll be consistent.
Yeah. So for those that can't hear, it's like he has been on an individualised program, and we don't think that too much has changed there. So again, like part of, I'm trying not to be a smart aleck, but like part of, if we tip into small slices of information, then we open the door to a running commentary on all our players, and everyone's on an individualised program. So if you don't see Bailey here one day, don't lose your mind. Like he's on an individualised program. Like it's okay. We'll let you know in time if there's an update to be given.
This might be a question, Andy. Can that change to a return to play program? Or is that the world we're in at the moment? Yeah.
We'll keep talking about the individualised program.
Okay.
Yeah, we won't get into too much detail there.
But I think it is reasonable. I think it's a reasonable question. I think we have an obligation to let you know when he's on the cusp of playing, and I think that would be our intention, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But I don't think we're quite there at the moment.
We're consistent in our approach with what we'll be saying, but you will know when that time comes.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Does that help?
Yeah,
I understand.
It's a tricky one.
No, it's true, but I think you can understand it's tricky for us as well because we're actually limited in what we can talk about publicly. And you know how strongly I feel about players' sort of personal, sort of medical situations because it just leads to speculation. Like, the one thing I can guarantee is there are people who would be speculating about Tyson's situation who have it wrong. And it's disappointing in some ways that I can't clarify it for you. But again, this is probably too personal to elaborate on, but some of the things that Tyson's had to deal with over his life, if you only pinpointed a couple of them, I'm sure you would sit back and say, it's almost a miracle that he's doing as well as he is. And hopefully that helps you sort of understand the way we think about the current situation.
This one on your fault, just for the most pessimistic yet passionate fans,
Yeah.
you're not peaking early, are you?
Oh, like the relentless nature of the season and the competitiveness, you know, means that you do have to be going close to redlining every single week. I'm just trying to get my numbers right. I reckon we played Port 4 games ago, so we played anyway maybe 5. North, Collingwood, Brisbane, Sydney, but before then, you know, we thought we played really poorly, and I think so everyone agreed. I just think there'll be ups and downs in the season, and I don't think it'd be disingenuous for us to say that we've just got this down pat where we can just sort of pull the puppet strings. Like I'm as nervous about the way we're going to play Friday night as I was last week. So I think that like being on edge like that is probably a good thing, but you know our job is to kind of help the players through, you know, what is a season that's likely too long already. So we can kind of submit to that and say, well, you know, we're just going to go until we run out of path, or we're going to sort of be a bit more thoughtful about it.
Is it fair to suggest that you are one of the better sides at changing the way you play? Like you do seem to be able to change modes and tactics and strategies a little bit more often and smoother than other sides.
The best way I could explain that is that I actually wish that we were so good, or we're in a different era where you could just say, we just go out and play our way and it doesn't matter what the opposition do, we'll be fine. I think we're way past that. And one, no one's good enough. It doesn't mean you don't prioritise what you think you're good at, but yeah, I mean, if you ever hear me say, oh, we're just going to concentrate on our game and the opposition be damned. Like, they're just too good. If you give them what they want. Put it this way, I don't mind saying, look, I've watched Carlton this year and I think, oh, if the game's played that way, they'll beat us. So if you accept that that's true, then you've got no choice but to be sort of agile in the way you think about it. Now, the flip side is if you don't quite have if you're not going well enough, you don't have the players, then that can lead to, you know, a lack of cohesion. And it's not that long ago. It's a fine line between being accused of flip-flopping on strategy and how good is it that you adjust based on what the opposition do. Those things are, you know, they're a tightrope.
Chris, can you please speak to the profound impact of Neil Danaher from your point of view?
Look, I actually can't because I didn't know Neil very well, but I think you can't help but have admiration for people that take a personal tragedy and try to use it as a force for good, and that's obvious for everyone to see.
Can I just ask you, you went down the slide several years ago. Tanner Bruin is going down the local Geelong slide on Sunday, and David Baczynski's also going down with, I believe, mother suffers from MND. Can you just give them some advice on how to cope with the situation on Sunday?
I think Tanner's doing a few ice baths in preparation, and Wojo's not that much young, or he's not that much younger than me. That's offensive to him, but he might. Can I say too old for this shit? Is that in this press conference? Edit that out.
So that's how you get now.
Yeah, exactly. That's yeah. Be careful. Be very careful. All right. Thanks a lot.